Welcome, folks. As we are getting this conversation started, I'd like folks to chat in what is one of your favorite tools these days to be working with in AI. And Josh, I can't not ask you the same question. Josh, what's one of your favorite, maybe lesser known AI tools these days?
So I use this tool called castmagic.io. And what it will do is you can upload MP4 to MP3 files. It will transcribe those files. If you're doing a video, it will go in and give you closed captions if you want that. But the cool thing is it'll take the transcription, and if you point to a model, it will then go ahead and transform the transcription into a blog post, quiz questions, and other formats that you're working with. So that's kind of like my secret tool when I need to go ahead and take a transcription of myself and then get it into some other format. So that's castmagic.io.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
Oh, I tell you, I'm getting hooked on all the deep research versions of the tools now. I'm just going with that to watch when it goes off on its own and comes back with the deep research compared to the shorter answers that we have. So, yeah, it's some of those. Each of the big LLMs have those versions now, so digging into that, but just really starting to explore and see how far that can go.
Awesome. Douglas, thanks for being the brave first poster. All right, we've got folks share in the chat. What is one of your favorite tools you're playing around with these days? JD, what about you?
My favorite AI tool is Google Maps because it solves a problem, and at no point do I go, "That's AI." I think it's just an apt comparison for what we're trying to ultimately accomplish, as opposed to kind of where either we are from a technology evolution or a mindset perspective today. It's not. I'm going to use AI. AI is just how technology works moving forward. That said, more on the AI specific side, I believe I was an early to the table notebook LM person, not for the podcast generation purposes, but for
Which
the
is
research support purposes. I'm writing a book right now. I wrote a book right before ChatGPT released, and now I'm doing another one with the current set of tools. And it's been interesting to compare and contrast the experience of, a couple of years ago, I just had papers everywhere, tabs and like books open on my desk and all this stuff. And now I have a set of browser tabs with different tools in them that are helping me curate large amounts of information. So Notebook LM has been a meaningful tool for me for that purpose.
you know what? I appreciate the podcast version of Notebook LM. I think it is so very, very fun. I just uploaded some of my personality data, my co-founder's personality data, and let it tell us where our conflicts are. And it was a very fun podcast, super accurate to listen to. All right, folks, we are going to get things kicked off. Hey, everyone. My name is Kirsten Moorfield. I am going to kick us off with a little bit of housekeeping. Just two important items. First, we encourage you very much to ask questions throughout the sessions. You can submit it in the Q&A panel. If you put it in chat, I most likely will miss it. So please put it in the Q&A channel, and I'll try to answer those as we go. And then also, we are recording today's session. So if you need to bounce for any reason, we will send you the recording after this. So I'm really excited about today's conversation because at Cloverleaf, where I am the co-founder, chief strategy officer, we've been using AI for years to get timely insights to learners in the moment when they need it. We focus specifically on emotional intelligence and relational coaching, but I have spent so much of my time over the past few years trying to explain to people learning matters most in the moment when somebody needs it, and personalization should be more than just, hey, now you're manager of band two, here's content that matters for manager band two. And finally, that is just now becoming more expected, which I think is super wonderful and very exciting. But it's also a pretty complicated topic using AI and L&D. There's a ton of noise. So here to cut through it are some experts that I'm really honored to bring together. First, I will introduce JD Dillon, whoop whoop, whose career has taken him from being a frontline employee to supporting the frontline through learning and development. And now he is on the tech side of enabling L&D to support the frontline even better than ever. JD is the Chief Learning Officer at Exonify. He's the author of The Modern Learning Ecosystem. And I personally think, JD, you are a great authentic voice in the world of learning and development and what the future holds. Next, let's welcome Josh Cavalier, who has been creating learning solutions for corporations, governments, and secondary education institutions for nearly 3 decades and is now fully embracing AI. He shares his experiments and his learnings through his popular YouTube channel, his LinkedIn feed, which I personally find very interesting, and his incredibly packed speaking schedule. He's joining us from London, where it is currently dinner time. So thank you, Josh, for joining us. And Matt Donovan also joining us from London. He likes to joke that he is a recovering instructional designer with over 25 years of leading L&D teams, currently the Chief Learning Officer at GP Strategies, and he travels the world, like today, working with learning leaders on their strategies to incorporate AI to build learner-centric solutions like we've never been able to do before. So a common theme between all three of these gentlemen is that they have insight into hundreds of companies across the world. So we are really excited to glean the wisdom from all three of you on what you're seeing happening out there. JD, I'm gonna kick the first question to you. Complete this sentence. AI will not take your job, but
your organization will apply AI to change how work gets done. So there's a common trope out there around this conversation, especially associated to people's concerns about the impact of AI on their work and their jobs and their lives, where it's AI won't take your job, someone using AI will. I just think that's fundamentally wrong. Because first, technology is not sentient. People build technology, people procure technology, people implement technology, and people make decisions associated to technology. So I think right now, especially in L&D, we're spending a lot of time talking about how we can use AI to do the things that we have historically done faster and cheaper. And there's something to be said for short-term gains in any digital transformation, the introduction of any new technology. But fundamentally, I believe that if your AI strategy is focused on how you can build courses faster, you're fundamentally doing this wrong. And we're looking in the wrong direction. And
Why?
yeah, the tech is still wildly in flux, right? Like, what new model came out 5 minutes ago since we've been talking? I don't know, but there's something, right? There's an AI for that. It's a website. Just I don't know how many tools are there at this point. It's probably silly. There's something new every day. But what I think is important is instead of trying to chase the iterative nature of the technology, it's to look at what's the bigger picture of how this is impacting the way decisions are being made in the workplace. And I think that is a much clearer view right now than the specific functional capabilities of different large language models, different providers, and all of those different types of considerations. So my guidance is to not let short-term benefits distract us from long-term impact, because we should be rethinking, even if you're not permitted to adopt certain tools, if you're struggling to keep up with the evolution of the technology, I don't know either. I do this for a living, and I can't keep up with what every different provider is doing and what every model is capable of.
Yeah.
So instead of chasing until things start to settle, because you can see everything kind of heading in the same general direction, right? I think where the focus needs to be in one is rethinking how work is done through technology, right? And organizations are going to ask the question, do we need this work done at all? You saw a very large technology organization recently. The CEO asked the question, why would you hire somebody? Can't AI just do this? So one, does the work need to get done moving forward? Two, what's the best way to get the work done given our new digital ecosystem? And then three, then what role do people play in getting the work done moving forward? And I think that's the lens we need to be looking at this conversation through. It's not about prompt engineering, not about talking heads, not even about chatbots, right? It's a fundamental rethink of work processes and the role that people play in facilitating them. That's the conversation we need to have as the tech settles itself.
So good. I am super curious about the opportunities you see that presenting. I would imagine people might be listening to this like, yes, I need to wait for my leadership to figure that out. So I'm curious to have the conversation. We're going to get to it. I'm not going to go there yet because there's some other like groundwork I think will be helpful to lay. But I'm just letting you all know, foreshadowing, we are going to talk about actually what role can you as L&D folks play in that transition without waiting for it to happen? How do you actually influence it? Okay, Josh, speaking of AI is coming, so many tools. This is a bit messy. Like you have a really helpful graph to talk about human machine. Can you share that? Walk us through that real quick.
Yeah, just to tee this up and just to riff off, what JD was talking about. There's this relationship between humans and AI or humans and machines that is going to be a constant conversation as uh, corporations begin to analyze specific workflows and tasks, and the technology matures. But where does the human sit in that? And so I decided to go ahead and put together this scale to advance conversations forward, at least get people to understand the nuances of the relationships, because just as JD alluded that there's CEOs that said, well, we'll just have AI do it. That is not a reality because technology fails. And when it fails hard. What is the backstop for that? And so with that, let me go ahead and just share my screen real quick and just go over this. I am going to be getting into all the details of this at Learning Technologies tomorrow. But real quick, if you look at the scale, over on the left-hand side is human. Over on the right-hand side is completely autonomous AI agent. And then in the middle, we have, this gradient of the relationship between a human and AI. Now, this scale itself can mature to robots, but we're not even there yet. So at robots at scale. So we'll just keep it at AI for today. But to quickly go over this and just describe real quick the segments that I have here. Number 2 is like prompting or prompting with the GPT. So it's really the humans just driving it. Number 3 is when you get into an automation. So using tools like Make or Zapier. Number 4 would be, when you are collaborating with AI. For instance, when you're using deep research or you're using OpenAI's Operator. And for those of you that are not familiar with Operator, you can prompt, and then there is an agent working in the background, going through websites. And then when you are needed to enter your username or password or make a purchase or whatever the case may be, then you are alerted. So you're working in a collaborative fashion with AI. Number 5 is now we start getting into agents, but it's very much human in the loop here. So the agent will go in and do some work, but the human is required to review. Number 6 is when you have an agent, but it's pretty much hands off. There is some monitoring that needs to happen, but maybe checking a dashboard. And then number 7 is a complete agent. So that is the full spectrum there. There's actually more beyond this, but I think it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about when you're talking about agent to agent collaboration and how humans interact there. So again, this is just to bring a language around this. I know that HR is going to have a massive issue hiring individuals against the reality of vendors adding agents that are going to impact roles. And so hopefully this scale will allow people to have conversations around how the relationship is structured. And then also, so what happens when technology fails and you need more human in the loop? Because it's not going to work all the time. So what's your plan B, so to speak? And that's what the scale is about.
Okay, so helpful. So we hear from JD, hey, it's not about asking how AI can help us do today's work faster, better. But it's a fundamental change in what work actually needs to be done and how are humans involved in that? Josh sharing, hey, how humans are involved in that actually depends on many different use cases of AI. So Matt, I want to hear from you. What is the mindset shift that folks in learning and development need to make, not only to start incorporating AI, but incorporating it in a way that just doesn't just lead to more content, especially more mediocre vanilla content that doesn't truly engage the learner?
No, I think that's one of probably the bigger impediments we have as humans in this transition towards becoming more with AI. I think one of the things to keep in mind is we've been starting off talking like some of the skill sets like prompt engineering, where we focus on the technology, and what we're failing to do is talk about the mindset about how we go and do our work, because it is about doing our work, incorporating AI into those workflows. So being able to start with that we mindset of me plus AI versus just me myself, the old human way to be able to do that. I think one of the great examples of a conversation I had is a highly respected peer in the instructional design space. I've known them for many years, and they were kind of complaining with me and saying, hey, it's really hard to learn some of these tools. I could go out and craft a course faster than I could to be able to use to learn AI to be able to do this. And it's like, the crafting learning objectives, for example. And I said, here's my question to you as an instructional designer in the future. Why are you creating learning objectives? And the idea is that I don't need you to be able to craft a nice Megarian learning objective. I need you to move up the chain to figure out, is this the right thing to be teaching? Is this going to drive to productivity? How do I get to performance? Those are the kind of things that we need to be focusing on and moving that. So I think part of that mindset shift is thinking bigger at scale. How do we use AI as humans to scale our expertise, to scale our wisdom, to bring in those meteor challenge where AI kind of really struggles with it, and kind of give up some of that other space that we had around, crafting a single course and a learning objective. I can teach AI to do that, but I want you to move up that value chain to be able to do that. So really, I think, sometimes we look at AI as like a technology adoption challenge. It's really a human change management issue wrapped around AI as a technology and how we start to embrace and use it. I think it starts back at the work, and then bringing those absolutely critical human values of authenticity, our lived experiences, our expertise. That's where we need to move into the space to be able to do it, because AI is going to have a hard time doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Matt, I've also heard you talk about it's not just about being able to teach a skill, but it's being able to teach how that skill is then applied within your unique business. AI can teach, for example, how to read a P&L report, but
Yep.
it can't teach how your organization specifically interprets certain decisions and then makes the next decision off of that. And so this actually can elevate you
Yep.
as the learning or the instructional designer, or whatever the roles are going to be called actually. This elevates you from the cost of entry, the 101, and gives you more of a strategic opportunity to truly upskill the whole organization in the more innovation, strategy, like
No,
that kind
that's
of
That,
skill.
that's a great example. I know I talk a lot about the business acumen example, and if we're building a business acumen course, understanding financial statements is a core component of it. I could go out to ChatGPT and have it create what is an income statement, what is a balance sheet, and I can ask it that, and it could probably come up with a really good one. But if I were to ask it, how do you read this company's income statement? Much harder to do. It'll probably give you an answer very similar to the first question I asked. It may drop in our unique information, like the name of our company, but will it really understand how our income statement differentiates from other companies that are structured in exactly the same manner? And that's because AI can't generate off of that generally, which it cannot find. So if it's never been expressed or it's not available, how do we then reach into and kind of bring that performance, that special, that secret sauce for around performance? And that's the human rules to kind of pull and extract that, and then make that part of that findable system, so that we can generate off that in the future. And then moving on to bigger problems like, how do I use our income statement plus a business acumen model to make really evidence-based decisions that are going to win in the marketplace? And so that's where we have to kind of really shift from being designers of instruction to really thinking about performance, human performance improvement challenges, and how we bring that into the AI cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we're going to get to the question I teased earlier. JD, you gave a great groundwork of, hey, the way that work gets done is what's going to change. And then the downstream of that is everything is going to change. And even, for example, job titles, job descriptions, skills needed for each job, all of that is going to change. JD, share with us a bit of challenge and hope. How is this current inflection point potentially an opportunity for L&D leaders to finally go from that order taker to the strategic seat at the table we've all been wanting?
I look at this question through the lens of a restaurant server. Would you trust, you go to the restaurant, would you trust your server to provide menu recommendations after they kept you waiting for 20 minutes before they brought your drinks and then they dropped the entire tray on the way over. So I think this is an opportunity, one, to rethink the nature of enablement within an organization. I mean, I fundamentally think this is our chance to finally answer the question, why is there a corporate communications department and a knowledge management department and a training department and a talent management department? And aren't we all fundamentally doing the same thing, but having slightly different conversations or interacting with people at different parts of the journey? So I think there's a rethink coming in terms of what it means to help people do their jobs better and develop and grow and all of those things. But from an L&D lens, I think this is a chance for us to become great at both. Being an order taker, a very good one, and earning our way to being a strategic partner. Because I have yet to run into the organization and the C-suite that says, you know what? I wish I had more strategic partners in L&D. Like I always ask, like, are they asking for something different or are they expecting something from us? And we're struggling with the position that we play or the position that we hold based on the legacy of what learning and development means to a lot of organizations. I fundamentally think the biggest challenge in L&D is legacy, even more than its time and resources and budget and all the other factors that can influence how we're able to do what we do. And for me, becoming a strategic partner, being trusted and respected so that you can play more of a problem-solving role starts with becoming great at the basics and earning the chance to do more, which means being great at taking and fulfilling orders, getting the required stuff done efficiently without being disruptive, checking the boxes that have to be checked, even in an AI-enabled world, because the state of California still exists. The nation of Germany still has its compliance requirements and work councils and all the factors you have to take into account.
Yep.
We need to be very good at that stuff. And in doing so, be very hard on ourselves. Because I think it's much more comfortable to challenge our own position and our own capabilities and our own function and processes than to have someone else do it for us because we're still trying to own and protect. So can we use this opportunity and the outright fear and concern associated with this disruption, challenging the role that we play as individuals and as a function, to assess our practices, challenge ourselves to get faster, more efficient, more impactful, recognize this conversation is not a conversation about quality. At no point should the conversation be, well, a machine can't do it as well as I can. That's not how decisions are made. People are not necessarily looking for the highest quality output. They're looking for the right balance of efficiency and cost and impact. Can we balance those things effectively ourselves to earn the trust and respect we need to have a voice in our own transformation as well as the broader transformation of work? But in doing so, I think it starts with letting go of ever thinking that we owned learning and development and performance in the first place. The tools and the tactics that got us to this point do not get us where we need to go moving forward. So how do we embrace that? Recognize that learning doesn't change, right? That's the one thing hopefully comes out of this conversation is that like people are people. What it takes to get better at a thing is a fundamentally human experience. How we enable that changes, right? How we help people solve problems and advance and grow. All that's up for debate now. So we can either participate and inform the conversation by earning the trust and respect necessary to have the voice, or we can try to own, try to lean into our legacy, and then the conversation might happen without us, and then we get impacted by it. So that's kind of the way I look at the order taker conversation. I think we've been having that for way too long. I don't think anyone is interested in having a conversation about the seat at the table. Frankly, because we're at the table, because you probably have a CHRO or a CLO or a member of the executive team you tier up to that's sitting at said conference table. I just don't think we've necessarily evolved the way that we think about our role in the workplace to shift the legacy perspective on what learning and development is, regardless of what we call the function. So I think we've all been in that world, right? Where like you were the training department last week. Now you're the learning and development department. And we expected that to have people treat us differently because we changed our name. Again, we're battling legacy perspective on what education is and the role that we play in it, as opposed to a conversation how to build organizational agility in the face of nonstop disruption. That's the change I think we need to make.
Matt, Josh, any responses to that?
I mean,
I'll
I'll
jump
jump
in.
in here.
Oh, get it.
Oh, go ahead, Josh. You got it. Go ahead,
No,
and
no,
then I'll
no. Go
jump in.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's a great point. I think we are heading into a truly an inflection point for L&D. And the question is, are we going to continue down a path of cost containment, or are we going to make the shift to be a driver of competitive advantage? Because I firmly believe that the organization that can move its population and face that organizational disruption that JD was just talking about, that will be a competitive advantaged organization. Now, there are examples where other functions inside of organizations have made this shift. I point to supply chain management 25 years ago. Supply chain management 25 years ago, at that point, it was the cost of gas, location warehouses, relationships with unions. That's what it was. And then entered, so you had Kmart and Sears were these behemoth organizations that really, from a cost containment standpoint, had really maximized that how much to get this on a shelf. They'd really done a great job at maximizing that. Then you have Amazon and Walmart walk in, and what they started to do is among several things, two things is one, they use data and data-driven insights, and they changed the relationships with the vendors. And all of a sudden, it went from being a cost containment conversation to now we can generate new revenue streams. We can predict buyer behaviors. We can drive into that. And I think that the interesting thing, it's still called supply chain management. But who does it and how they do it and how they get it done is fundamentally different. So I think, and the question is that in the L&D organization, can we become the change we need to be able to do that? In the old world, people started to phase out as Kmart and Sears ended up kind of where they were. In that pathway, if you didn't make the evolution to the new space, it was a challenge. And I think that's a big thing that we've got to think about. And that's the call to action is either we become the change. And I think, JD, you said it's like, the question is, order takers, we don't have a seat at the table. I'm like, we need to change it because I think data drives that. Imagine an organization that was able to go back and rethink its strategy and its skilling based off of frontline performer data. What are they learning? What are they doing? How are they solving those problems? And that becomes a data point to enable the organization to shift. We're bringing those points together rather than this line that is often not disconnected, or L&D being this long barrier. Tell me what you want to teach these people. Give me 12 weeks to roll it out, and then maybe we'll do it, and maybe we'll measure it and all that. We need to be able to change the way to do that. AI, I think, is a big disruptor with that. But I just wanted to add that. I mean, it's a great point, JD, with that one. Josh.
Yeah, for L&D to survive, we got to drive up into the business. And I truly do believe that an instructional designer is going to shift and become a human machine performance analyst, which is a whole new set of skills that people in this industry need to acquire. But, as you mentioned, data, those are sources of truth. And those sources of truth are going to be used across multiple functions in the relationship between humans and AI and how they do their jobs. This is a massive disruption, not just for L&D, but for HR. And for L&D to step up, there has to be a transformation in the way that we do our work each and every day and the way that we interact with the business, so that when there are changes that occur on the front lines or in business in general with, tariffs, let's say, and then you have to react on a Monday. What is the velocity in getting things out there, not just with our associates, but also with agents, or the way that our associates interact with agents or AI? This is an incredibly difficult problem, and I think we have to start changing the conversation and being real about these realities against the backdrop of technology failing. And what is the human to human connection that needs to happen? Not just, human and AI, but what about mentoring and coaching and 360 feedback and all the things that were the tribal knowledge within an organization? You don't want to lose that. Or an expert and novice connection. AI is going to go ahead and make everyone look like a rock star, but are we really maintaining those connections? So there's a lot of concerns, there's a lot of problems, and, we got to keep these conversations going forward.
Yeah.
Josh, go ahead, JD, you got it, and then I'll jump in. Go ahead.
I was just gonna add, there's how many times can I plug my next book? But in my next book, all my books end at the end talking about influence and how do you actually make any of these ideas that you might be buying into actually happen in an organization. Because like we've already said, so much of it comes down to mindset and legacy perspective as opposed to actually like tools, tactics, and technologies. And one of the things I challenge readers to do is to assess their own reputation in the organization, and specifically HR. If I say the following to you, does this sound like a good time? You have a meeting with HR on Monday. That sound like a good time? Anyone excited about that? If you're in HR, are you excited by that? I think we have to take a step back and ask, what's our reputation? How are we perceived in an organization, and how have we built that reputation? And I think there's a tendency in HR, learning and development, the kind of people-focused sides of businesses, to be a bit fluffy, right? To be a bit, let's say, altruistically driven. And I do a significant amount of work with frontline employees. I'm in this game. Is anyone here for the money in learning and development? Right? I'm very much in this game because I want to give people a chance to do better every day, because I, growing up, didn't necessarily have that chance, or I saw what having that chance could do for people and their potential, as well as the organization's ability to succeed. And I think sometimes we can slide into an altruistic stance or argument to say what people deserve, right? People deserve a chance. They deserve the support to do their best work every day. I entirely agree with that. I also understand that that's usually how organizations make priority decisions. The conversation needs to be, if we want to properly serve the audiences we support, and if we're altruistically motivated to get them the support that we feel they deserve, because they do deserve it, we have to focus on the work itself first and enable the people through that, because the work is required, right? The machines have to move, boxes have to get shipped, customers have to be served, calls have to be answered in order for the organization to execute. How do we shift the focus of what we do from an enablement function to the work, and how the work gets done through people, so that we can properly rebalance to say we're helping the organization achieve and hit goals. And by doing so, we've earned the opportunity and helped shift the priority and the lens to how we can help the people have the best possible experience in executing that work. So I think that's part of the struggle here, is that I think we're so kind of driven by the people side of things and the desire to help people, 100% there, that we sometimes lose the focus on how decisions are made. And right or wrong, it's not always about what's best for people. The focus is the work. If we focus on the work, I think we can improve the experience of the people.
I have so many philosophical thoughts on that, because the work is actually dignifying for people. And also, I've had people over the years, because Cloverleaf deals with behavioral assessments and autonomous coaching, people have come to me and said, hey, I need to do a team building activity. What should I do? And I say the best team building activity is actually like having that hard conversation you need to have, not bringing in a facilitator. Like that is actually like doing the work, if you will. Like, hey, you didn't turn your assignment in on time. Like that's the best time to grow your emotional intelligence, is actually applying the thing. And that's why you need the information right then. And that is the opportunity AI is giving us, is, Exonify. You can know when somebody needs to know, how do I stock the shelf better? How do I not drop my tray next time? How do I, whatever, those are low examples, but like when they need to know that, them actually having the support they need there is so stress reducing, so value creating for their life. It is actually a gift. And the more we can understand that context, which AI is helping us with, and then just pull the snippet of information, which AI is helping us with, and then give it to them, the more we can actually, by serving them through the work, the more we can actually help people do and be their best selves. So I just couldn't not say that. Matt, I know you also had a point you wanted to make.
Well, I've evolved on all my points now, but I think I think one of the things I often share with folks is that if we miss this opportunity, and what I mean by that is that if all of this AI doesn't create space for the humans to be more human with each other, then we really miss the bigger picture of this. If we're just looking for ways for AI to take over human work and have fewer interactions with humans, and we all get our own individual AI bot, and I talk less and connect less with others, then I think we'll have missed the really big picture for what we need to do. And I think that focusing on that human aspect is the very nature of how we do the work, but put it in the right places where it needs to be in place to be the humans we need to be in the human plus AI equation. And that is both the great opportunity and the great challenges. That means we have to step up and be the humans. And that's we can create all the conditions for it, but that means we have to step through and be that the critical thinkers, the enablers, the engaging connectors. That's what we need to be able to do to bring folks together. So I think it's an exciting but also daunting time as what does it mean to be human?
Mm.
And we're going to over rotate this, right? Like we do every single time technology changes how work gets done. The most recent example that I think everyone here has run into in your everyday life is self-checkout at the grocery store, right? Self-checkout was already present pre-pandemic. And then the nature of the pandemic and the impact on people's ability to do the job and be able to find people to work in retail pushed organizations to kind of swing the door and say, well, we're going to go all in on self-checkout. And then as things started to change again, and the shopping experience kind of restored back to a greater level of normalcy, we still have a greater level of e-commerce and curbside pickup and fulfillment. All those things are still around, but not to the degree they were for a couple of years. Organizations started to recognize, well, one, customers were starting to ask questions about why I'm working for you now, right? Like, why are you making me do work when I go shopping by checking out my own stuff, especially when it's a more complicated, larger order? And the other big thing that a lot of retailers didn't necessarily think about in the rush to shift operations to meet the moment and potentially save on costs was that people steal stuff. So a lot of money was going out the front door, where in the past, loss prevention, a lot of it went out the back door. So you saw a lot of organizations rotate back when it came to reducing self-checkout. Some ripped it out entirely. I work with an international grocer in Europe who went the other direction entirely, and they installed slow lanes because they recognized that a lot of people go to the grocery store for social interaction. Like, this is their time out. So how do we, instead of automating the experience out of the grocery store for these folks, lean in to the human side and put up a slow lane and warn everybody else, like, this is going to take a while because we're having conversations at the checkout now, because that's why these folks are here. If you want speed, technology. If you want a social experience, people. So I think it's an interesting pendulum that swings every time technology changes how businesses operate and how work is done. And I think we're seeing the beginnings of that in a lot of how decisions are made. And I think it's up to functions like HR, learning and development, to play a role in helping level set that, so that we don't accidentally legislate humanity out of the workplace, go so far, and then start to realize, oh, whoops. And then we have to go back the other direction, which is what we always do.
The pendulum swings. You all have shared some really helpful examples, product-led growth, the product supply that you were talking about, Matt, JD, that just example right now on checkouts. I want to just underline the point of, we've also talked about some really scary things, like, will L&D jobs look the same in a year? Probably not. Maybe a little bit, but they're going to, within 5 years, certainly things are going to be very different. That's scary. Tariffs, that's scary. Like what the downstream effect is of some large decisions that are fully outside of our control, and it happens to be converging with AI and this major disruption. These things can be naturally just fear-inducing because they threaten our livelihoods and how we provide for ourselves and our families. And when we feel fear, our natural inclination is to go to what we've done before and what feels safe, and to not take any risks. And I want to thank the three of you right now for having just a very open, authentic conversation, and a sobering conversation as well. And I hope all of our folks listening, that you are hearing, like, that's not an option. That's actually only going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy then about our fears. And so instead, I just want to put a quick plug in here real quick, find ways to have joy in your life, because the more that you can have fun with something, the more you can have joy with something, like play around with an AI tool or play around with your kid on a swing set. Just the more ways that you can find some happiness and some joy, your perspective is going to open up to new ways that you can actually embrace these tools, and you can actually influence what becomes L&D inside your organization, and how these tools do get embraced, and how we actually can help people with the work so that they can become their best selves through their earning potential, their relationships at work, and how all of that overflows into their home life and society. All right. So to give us also some tactical hope here, Matt, I want to ask you, can you share about the future learning experience? Cast some big idea vision here. How will AI empower us to go from organization-centric programs to learner-centric?
Oh, I mean, I think this is kind of one of those things that's a little bit further out, but the window of these innovations are shortening. So I think one of the things is that historically L&D has been very organization centric. And what I mean by that, for example, is for the longest time, we knew that a 2-day workshop was very efficient for an organization to roll out, but may not have yielded the best in terms of retention and application with that. So that made those L&D very org centric decisions as we do it. I think in the future, we're actually going to get to what I mean by deep learner centricity. So imagine in the future, I will actually have my own digital twin, and it'll be Matt Donovan's learning bot, the digital version of analog Matt as it comes through. But it will actually have all of my information in it, my skilling journey, my learning journey as I've gone. It'll actually know how I learn, maybe preferentially, or as I go through a range of moments of learning need, it'll start to help with that. But the nice part about it is I come into an organization and I share my information about myself with the organization. And instead of the organization sending me out like a pre-built course, what my bot will be able to do is to take from those atomic assets inside the organization. It will create a ruthlessly relevant, just for me experience. So instead of creating like a neurodivergent version of a compliance course that's kind of out there that I can take, it'll actually build it for me. So my bot will start to reconfigure to align where I'm at. So it's really taking a deep understanding of myself and engaging with the organization. Now that creates a very, what I consider a learner centric, but it's also authenticity that through my lived experiences of my work, it also is a validated of this is the skills. Not only does he think he's good at Excel, but it's also started to build like a portfolio that says, yes, he's demonstrated this, he's done it in the context of work. So the organization gets a more authentic view of my skill sets over time. Now, the real power in this is, I think, is one of those limitations is where organizations, and we still to this day struggle with thinking about skilling. We are trying to go out there and in the tens to the hundreds of thousands of employees trying to figure out where everybody is. I mean, if I were to go out and ask a lot of CHROs, how many people do you have in your organization? What roles in there? They still struggle to be able to answer even those fundamental questions within a margin of error. Imagine that it moves over time. So now, instead of thinking of like from an N of one, the organization trying to go out and count all the skills in the humans, all the humans in their through their digital twin or their expression of their analog self is they actually contribute themselves so that an organization can now at mass start to have their own digital twin of the workforce contributed from the population itself. So instead of trying to go out there and count them, they're actually contributing that data. Now I think that'll be in the future, but that's where it starts to get deep data insights. And we're switching from I build it for you to I create the assets in the ecosystem from a learning side to be reconfigured in the end for the individual to be able to do that. This starts to get to just for me, just when I need it, just as I'm in the able to do that. So anyway, I think that's a down the road. I don't think that's that far away, but boy, I'm excited because imagine the ability for an organization to look at a digital twin of its workforce and being able to look at where the skills are today, where we need to go, and being able to actually run simulations on how to move populations. So I'm excited about the potential for that.
Awesome. All right, Josh, let's close this out by getting tactical. And folks, we are going to open up for Q&A after this. So if you have any questions, I actually can keep up with the chat. Submit them in the chat or the Q&A section. Josh, we've all seen demos, avatars. You can just upload your SOP and then AI turns it into a course. Let's talk about something less obvious or unexpected, maybe even worrisome, that L&D leaders should be thinking about these days.
When I first saw capabilities like that, I became enamored with it. But once you start implementing or see how it could potentially be used, then you start realizing that a lot of these workflows could be dangerous, depending upon how it's implemented and if there's any kind of hallucinations or made up information, or how derivative assets can be tracked and if they're really moving the needle. And so just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there needs to be a lot of analysis and thought about taking sources of truth and then getting it out to the front lines and making sure that it's used properly, that it's measured, and that it's truly having impact. And I think the ease of multimodal generative AI is going to give us a lot of options. And I'm not saying don't explore those options, but you got to be realistic in regards to how content can be actionable by associates, and what does that look like. And so there needs to be very pragmatic ways of moving forward and thinking about the way that we handle our knowledge or our corporate information and the way that it's transformed so it can be actionable in the way that people want to consume the information.
Great. All right. First question is about legal compliance, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit as we've gone here. Matt, I feel like you really pushed the envelope on what legal will feel comfortable approving, especially, in some more regulated industries like healthcare, finance. JD, you also were chatting earlier about, hey, how far will this go? Will legal's chatbot just approve, or not chatbot, agent end up approving the legal questions? How far is this going to go? That's broad and vague, but it's been a theme that's been coming up through the chat. I'm just going to throw it out there to the three of you.
I mean, I'll jump in from my side real quick. I think one of the things, and we've worked a lot of monitors and auditors in regulated spaces, and I think when we talk to them, what you want to be able to know is that people are acting competently, consciously competently out there, and they're being reinforced through management to be able to do that. That's really what they want to do, and that's really a performance-driven system versus our current thing of like, I told you in a course to not do it. Here's all the information, and then we manage it. But I think this new personalized approach allows us to get to that model of knowing that people are really capable and competent and confident in the roles that they're playing in the organization. And then at management, we have the data to be able to reinforce and grow and develop them. So I think actually as the compliance space goes from confidence through exposure to confidence through competence in the field, I think that's where the winds will begin to change down the stream. And we will have more data that gives us a broader, richer picture of how well people are performing.
For me, I think legal precedent is going to draw the lines. In previous roles where I worked, there were always lines to be drawn in terms of how we treated different types of content and different topics that we addressed. Certain topics needed every word to be stamped and approved by a lawyer. Certain topics were fair game. So like customer service training, as an example, have at it. Anything related to financial terminology, no. So I think we're going to see the same evolution in the conversation when it comes to what adds and what doesn't add risk to an organization, and how risk averse does the organization want to behave. I would compare this to the skills conversation a bit, because there was, and there probably still is, but at one point there was very much this idea that, people are going to have a skills profile. They're going to take that skills profile from one organization to another, and they're going to use that to inform their experience at the new organization. And I always sat there and stared at that, again, through the lens of frontline work, which is often high risk, highly compliant, those types of environments. I always sat there and said, yeah, but I've seen plenty of examples where someone clearly knows how to drive a lift truck because they've been doing it for the last 30 years at another organization. And then they move to another organization where they're going to drive a lift truck. And the lawyers don't care that you previously were trained to do it. They want you trained here so that they can check the appropriate box, so that if something bad were to happen, all of the kind of the T's have been crossed and the I's have been dotted. So that's how we're used to behaving. I think there's plenty of room to evolve that conversation, but I think a lot of it's going to come down to what the risk profile of an organization is. And as we start to see legal precedents around conversations about, well, the AI gave me the wrong answer, I acted on that answer, and then I got in trouble.
Yeah.
Is that my fault? Is that the company's fault? Is that we haven't seen that play out yet.
We're going to.
Yeah.
We will. Jody, Ann Thomas was sharing, hey, it's estimated that 2.4 million US jobs will be lost in the next 5 years. As L&D, how do we quell that fear with our frontline workers and encourage them to embrace the very thing they are fearful of, as well as where was it? Joseph added in here, hey, Anne, L&D will be included in the lost jobs. So I'd love to hear your responses to that. Josh, I'll start with you because
I'm going to jump in on that. I think adaptability is a muscle that everyone's going to need to strengthen. when I go and I do these talks, I talk to L&D professionals. I'm like, are you all right with not working in a timeline? Like your job is going to change. Are you all right with that? That's not an easy conversation. Not only that, but those same conversations happen in every single function. And, I think that there needs to be plenty of room within organizations to have conversations around the work that's getting done. And when technology is part of that, what is the makeup of that work? And how do we navigate that? So change management, this is massive behavior change, and it's going to be messy moving forward before it becomes streamlined and there's well-defined um, decision making, whether you're going to do or use AI or not within a specific task. Getting back to what JD said in regards to risk management, that task scale that I was showing, as you move up the scale, there's more risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is not an on-off switch. We're talking about people and the relationship with technology. And I think that's going to be a bigger part of the conversation moving forward. And it's going to be a proficiency of what will be the evolved L&D function is understanding those relationships, working with HR, and getting to a point where somebody is comfortable knowing that within the next year, their role is going to massively change. We don't know exactly how much, but it will change. And so that has to be part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, you got to play this out yourself. You got to make assumptions with regards to the fact that you will be impacted. I don't know who won't be. I think people that are in, let's call it knowledge worker roles, I don't like those labels, but I think we are wildly uncomfortable with the impact of transformation and automation on us in a way that frontline workers have been facing forever. So I think if there's anywhere there's a lesson to be learned about how to adapt the way you do what you do in the face of digital transformation, the frontline workforce has schooled on this because they've been facing it. And now I think the disruption is more facing the corporate team than it is frontline workers because shelves still have to get stocked. All right. And customers still need to be served and phones still need to be picked up. And I think it's playing out not just your role, but your function, your organization, your industry. Because it's not just about is my job necessary tomorrow. It's about how is the conversation changing around the space in which I operate. Because if you work in manufacturing versus you work in financial services versus you work in healthcare, it's not all level in terms of the impact of what transformation is going to do in terms of industry, yet alone in function. So I think you need to have this conversation now. You need to play out the what ifs and start looking for ways that you can inform the transformation. Replace yourself, right? How can I start to change the way that I'm doing work so that one, I'm developing my understanding of new tools and technology. I'm shifting the way that I function so that I can be ready for change, ready for taking on a new role, ready for the function shifting around me. And like I said, being less and less beholden to legacy. And just one quick example on LinkedIn earlier, I saw a conversation between people who were talking about the nature of L&D job postings. I look at a lot of L&D job postings, and there are a lot of jobs where you read the description and it really isn't one job. Right? The job description seems to be 4 or 5 different functions within one particular role. And I think sometimes we push it back against that instead of realizing, that's the nature of work moving forward, is looking for people who can do a lot of different things and provide value in a lot of different ways when deep specialization isn't necessarily required. Because there's still going to be certain types of jobs out there you need to be really good at one thing because that one thing delivers huge value. In a world of enablement where our job is to help other people be great at what they do, I think we're getting more and more into a world of, well, how can you use a bigger, more dynamic toolkit to do that? But I think it starts with playing out the not so distant future for yourself, considering those multiple levels of change, and then making decisions about how you can prepare.
All right. Thank you. That is very helpful. We are going to attempt a lightning round on 2 final questions. So I'm going to give it to each of you to give like just a 1-2 sentence answer. The first one's real spicy and difficult to do. And I just need you to know this was submitted by an anonymous attendee, and I'm going to take a picture of it so you know this was submitted by somebody. And this is not just me poking the bear. The elephant in the room is the LMS. L&D is sometimes critical of LMSs, rightly so, but what do you think? How will LMSs and LXPs evolve with AI? Keep it concise. Who's brave enough to poke the bear first?
I'll jump in. I think there's going
Yeah,
to be massive consolidation on the tech stack, all the way down from human capital management systems, knowledge management, and learning management. It's going to consolidate, and or there's going to be agents talking to each other. But you still have compliance. There's still regulations. There's still things that need to be tracked. And so there's always going to be a role for a learning management system or a learning experience platform, but it's going to evolve and change. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a slow moving, boat that we got to steer. But there are going to be new platforms and new ways of going in and tracking AI created content. So it should be pretty dynamic. Should be interesting to see what happens over the next few years.
JD, Matt, do you have an
yeah.
immediate
Go
response?
ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to be even bolder to say I think the there will always be a small niche for it, but I think what we've tried to blow it out into this huge part of our tech ecosystem, it'll actually become a much smaller, very focused in what it does. I think even the term learning experience platform itself is I think too broad and inaccurate for the future of where we're going. So yeah, I think it's much more dire for where the LMSs have been placing themselves currently in that space. So I think the end is, or at least the constriction is much sooner.
Mm. JD,
LXP is already an outdated term. We don't need it anymore. LMSs don't exist as currently constituted within the next 5 years.
wow. Okay. That was concise. All right, folks. We are going to close it out now. But before we do that, the three of you have shared so much. We've barely scratched the surface. I'm sure folks want to keep learning from you. So I'm going to let you go around. Josh, we'll start with you. I want you to share where people can find you, as well as let's answer the final question, which is Sarah asked, how can we actually start incorporating AI into our day-to-day? Give one tip on how Sarah and the rest of our listeners can start incorporating AI into their day-to-day.
Yeah, you can find me up on LinkedIn, joshcavalier.com, another way to get in touch with me. I think it comes down to understanding your relationship with technology and understanding how AI works. Get in there and understand, like, the information coming back is based upon probability. It's not deterministic. That alone right there is an unlock for so many people. And if you can get to a point of understanding how that works, I think as you move forward with AI, it becomes easier to navigate.
JD?
I can learn more about what my team's doing enabling frontline workers through AI at exonify.com. I'm at learngeek.co. My LinkedIn is in the chat as well. First tip, replace yourself. How can you be using technology to ask questions about, does this work need to be done, or can I do it in an entirely different way in your day-to-day workflow? So start with asking, those small questions, but don't get so distracted by the day-to-day and short-term gains that we miss the longer-term value and opportunity. And for that, I think it's having as many conversations as you can have with people within your organization and elsewhere in the profession to find out how decisions are being made and how people are thinking about the evolution of work through technology, so that you can properly prepare and inform that conversation.
Replace yourself. Check yourself, replace yourself before you wreck yourself. Matt, close it out. Where can people find you? What's one helpful tip on how they can use AI today?
Let's see. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, but I think the one thing I've been doing a lot about is find something in my daily activities that's a pain point for me, and set out to say, how do I define that problem? How can I then start to use AI to help me solve that, to automate, to generate, to drive insights through data sets, but practicing and using it. It's no different than what the other guys have said. You've got to try it. This is not a way to think yourself through it. You got to do it.
Amen. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could see them, I'm sure people would be clapping. This was a sober yet hopeful, all of the feels conversation. So thank you all for bringing your authentic voice and perspective to a crazy time, as well as a large opportunity time in our industry. Folks, I highly encourage you to follow up with these guys and follow them, because I personally love and benefit from their content. You can also follow up with me. I'm on LinkedIn and cloverleaf.me. That's where you can find out about me. Thanks, everyone.